now. How and what do we mean by this? And how can we connect these knowledge and life? In 1999, I started to write a book, and it was published in 2001. It was called and published in Turkish, Strategic Depth. 600 pages. In this book, I tried to analyze the geography and history of Turkey as two permanent parameters of foreign policy. And I was planning to write afterwards historical depth, philosophical depth, and another 3 books after this in 5-6 years. But because of writing that book first, I was punished and I became Chief Advisor of Prime Minister in 2002. From that time until now, I am in practice. So every country has its own unique characteristics, and those leaders, intellectuals, who understand and reinterpret that characteristics in the new context, dynamic context of history, they can change the paradigm. There is no destiny of failure. When I wrote that book, it was a new strategic framework. Turkish society was under depression because of earthquake in 1999, because of economic crisis, which was worse than economic crisis in Greece today, and because of several political crises. From those days in 2001 today, in 2012, everybody is talking Turkey as a rising power. What is the first intellectual background and also practical implementation of this background? Let me try to summarize some of these events. First of all, in 1989, when Francis Fukuyama wrote his famous article, The End of History, I wrote a counter-response, and it was published later in 1991 and later as a book in 1994, Civilizational Transformation. My argument was the history did not end and will never end. The history will flow even faster than today. Why? And from that time on 1989 until today, I can say there were 3 big earthquakes in history and in international relations. And in every of these earthquakes, Turkey, United States, and NATO, since we were talking, I mean, we are here with NATO, I will make some references to NATO. The responses were important because the United States was a global winner of the Cold War, and as global power, has had certain responsibilities. Whenever you have a power, you have ethical responsibility. If you are powerless, you don't have any responsibility. So transformation of American foreign policy is from one center of bipolar world into a new global power. And Turkey as a regional power with multidimensional character in the sense of regional identity is also an interesting case to study. What are these 3 earthquakes and how did they influence our foreign policy, Turkish foreign policy as well as American foreign policy, and also relevance to NATO? The first earthquake was in 1991 when Soviet Union collapsed. I call this a geopolitical earthquake. The old bipolar geopolitical structure of Cold War has ended. Several risks did emerge. Second earthquake was 9/11, 2001, because of 9/11. I call this a security earthquake. The perception of security has changed not only in the United States or in New York, but everywhere in the world. The third earthquake is 2011, started earlier, 2008-9, but reached to the peak in 2011, which is an economy-political earthquake. Global economic crisis, European financial economic crisis, and also a huge political transformation in the Middle East. Several risks and opportunities at the same time. Let me say a few words about the first earthquake. The first earthquake, in fact, was the most favorite one for us, for NATO, for US, for Turkey, because we were on the winning side of long, continuing, almost half a century continuing Cold War. American strategy for this, there was a general trend because of the end of Cold War. The general trend was democratization, freedom, global. The first term, global transformation, globalization started at that time. So there was an understanding for American society that they are leading the new world, and that the new world was used as the terminology at that time. And that wave of democracy was successful in Balkans, in Eastern Europe. Several former communist regimes became democratic regimes and became member of EU. But in those days, it was a great mistake by international community in general, but by US and EU in particular. The demands of democratic societies in the Middle East were seen as a risk element. In Algeria, in Tunisia, in Jordan, there were some democratization processes, you know. It was seen like a potential threat. Therefore, those who encouraged democracy in Eastern Europe and Balkans were reluctant to support democracy in the Middle East. One. Second, the Oslo process, Madrid process, which started to find a solution for Palestinian issue, were not successful, and it did not create any positive result. That created a frustration in the Middle East. And as Turkey, when we look on those 1990s, when the general trend was in favor, in the direction of democratization, in the direction of freedom, Turkey was very defensive because of terrorist attacks, because of coalitions and economic crisis. Turkey did not perform well. And just to give you a statistic, in 1991, our per capita income was around 2,500. In 2001, it was around 2,800, 900. So our per capita income remained same. There was a more self-defensive or apologetic position in foreign policy, trying to protect the borders because of these PKK attacks or other threats. And first time, we realized these new elements, new, let me say, neighbors, which we share the same history because of war in Bosnia and in Kosovo and in Central Asia. There was a huge opportunity because of this emergence of new Turkish-speaking republics in Central Asia, in Caucasia, in Balkans. But at the same time, because of not having necessary reforms in the country, there was a fear of division, a fear of security. So it was more security-oriented foreign policy, security-oriented politics in Turkey. After the second earthquake in 2001, it was interesting. This time, the flow was the opposite. After 9/11, first in the United States, but later in almost all Europe, there was more security-oriented politics. Security became the focus of everything, focus of domestic politics, focus of foreign policy, and there were several restrictions. Rather than democracy, more security measures came to the picture. In Turkey, with our government started in 2002, our preference was more in the direction of freedom and democracy. And in my first speech in TV, in a TV interview in 2003, I said that we have to create a new balance between freedom and security. This is very important. Today, in the Middle East, the problem originates from this imbalance between freedom and security. What we were telling in all the government programs, that we will not sacrifice security for freedom or freedom for security. Ultimate objective of any political system is to provide to their citizens security without sacrificing freedom, and freedom without sacrificing security. Because if you sacrifice freedom for security, you have autocratic regimes. If you sacrifice security for freedom, you have chaotic regimes. The best regime is giving as much freedom as possible without limiting or risking security. So from 2001 until 2011, Turkey has performed an excellent program in the sense of democratization in politics, economic growth, and active foreign policy. And these three interacted to each other. Because of our democratization democratic processes, Turkey became more strong, and we had political stability in Turkey. Our party won 3 subsequent elections with increasing votes. We started with 36%. In 2007, it was 48%. In last election last year, more than almost 50%. And we won 2 municipal elections, 2 referenda. First time ever, even rare in Europe, a political party is increasing votes in every election. Why? Because we trust to the people and we try to enlarge freedom without risking security. This is an important principle. In fact, today in Middle Eastern societies, they want to do the same thing. They want to have the same thing. They want to have a free democratic society. While the autocratic regimes have been telling them, don't ask democracy from us, because we are at war against Israel, our lands being occupied, we need to have a strong army, we need to have an autocratic structure in order to defend our lands. And the same autocratic regimes turned their face to the West and said, don't ask democracy from us, because if we go, Islamic radicalism will come. Then among themselves they said, we should keep this status quo, because if we leave this status quo, chaos will come. Turkish case has proven that democracy brings stability rather than chaos, economic development, and a democratic country, Turkey, can follow a much more assertive foreign policy with dignity than the autocratic regimes. So from 2001 until 2011, in the second earthquake, that was Turkish performance. American society, during the same time, American foreign policy became more security-oriented, and, intervention to Afghanistan, to Iraq, just to use power in order to secure the security, in order to guarantee the security. Of course, this more unilateral approach compared to 1990s created some reactions as well. And President Obama, when he declared his policy of multilateralism after he became president, was the right time. It was interesting. I can share this with you since it was published in 2002. After 9/11, when in a TV interview, I was asked what will be the future reaction of American foreign policy regarding 9/11, after 1 week after 9/11. I said, we understand there is a psychological trauma in American society, because American society always felt that they are immune of any attack because of the geographical distance from Afro-Eurasia. There are only 2 possibilities of risk: terrorist attack or nuclear attack. But 9/11 changed all these. But important thing now at this moment is, and later I gave a conference at Princeton in 2002, April, the same argument I used. I said, but for American society, the future lies in a wise approach. And today, United States needs a Marcus Aurelius from Boston rather than a Caesar from Texas. At Princeton, I said, only a black president can be a good remedy for this trauma, so that the inclusiveness of American society, which is the base of everything, could be re-motivating American society into a global power. It was not a prophecy, but just an analysis, because the strength of American society is inclusiveness. German identity, you can be German if you are real German. Still, our citizens in Turkish people in Germany, they have this problem. It is difficult to say Turkish German, but it is so easy to say Turkish American, Jewish American, Armenian American, Greek American, Assyrian American, Latin American. So American identity is a geographical identity, which is much more inclusive. This is the base of United States as a global power. And that security era from 9/11 until President Obama became president, until the next earthquake, I would say, created a new discussion in American society, also in NATO. NATO was intervened in Afghanistan. In 1990s, NATO intervened Bosnia and Kosovo. In 2000 in Afghanistan. But in this last earthquake, which I call an economy political earthquake, is much more comprehensive and will be more, we will need more time to find alternative ways. What do I mean by this? For example, today, if every morning, every morning I wake up in Ankara, usually I don't wake up in Ankara, I wake up in different cities. But when we are in Ankara, when I turn my face, I have a map in my office, and everywhere I like maps. When I turn my head to west, from Greece up to Spain, Ireland, Portugal, there is a zone of economic crisis. When I turn my face to south, from Syria up to Morocco, there is a zone of political crisis. When I turn my head to east, to right, from Afghanistan to Pakistan, Central Asia, India, we have a zone of Iran and Gulf, a zone of instability and problem of security. Right at the center, there is a country, like an island. For the last many years, continue to have an economic growth. Today, Turkish economy is the second fastest growing economy, 8.5 in last quarter %. Our public debt ratio is only 39% to GDP. You can compare with other countries. United States around 90s. Greece is more than 150% all. Our democracy has been strengthened. Our foreign policy is everywhere. And these are supporting to each other. And I can tell you, despite of sometimes some different views, this era became a very promising era in Turkish-American relations, because United States realized the potential of Turkey as a problem solver, as a country having not only being a rising economic power, but rising a donor country. Turkey is a rising donor country now. Every year we are donating, our official donation only is around $1.5 billion. Without this, not loan. It's just donations, like what I said to Somalia, $300 million, to Afghanistan and many places. And this created a new momentum. But the risk is still there. The risk is still there. We want to be member of EU, but the future of EU is not clear. What will be the future of Eurozone? What will be the future of European integration in general sense? Of course, whatever happens in Europe, European Union, we will continue to have this strategic choice because Turkey is part of European history and will continue to be part of European history. Whatever some of our allies in Europe thinks, even their history cannot be written without using Turkish archives. This is a historical fact. Turks are part of European continent and will continue to be so. In this ceremony here regarding Macedonian Friendship Award, I spoke to Macedonian diaspora and I said, thanks for this award of friendship, but don't think that I am your friend. I am one of you. I am a Macedonian. Because it is interesting to say to you, there are more Macedonians living in Turkey, Macedonian origin people living in Turkey than in Macedonia. There are more Albanians living in Turkey than in Albania. There are more Bosniaks living in Turkey than in Bosnia. There are more Abkhazians living in Turkey than Abkhazia. There are more Chechens living in Turkey than Chechnya. There are almost more Georgians living in Turkey than Georgia. Turkey is accumulation of all these Balkan, Caucasian, Middle Eastern people. That historical tradition continues. And even in our understanding to diaspora, we always said, and in last ambassador conference I underlined this, that all those who migrated from Anatolia, Armenian, Greek, Muslims, Christian, Assyrians, they are all our diaspora.